Good morning, everyone. In today's class, we will be discussing about growing American cynicism. The reason why I have taken this particular topic is, as we all know, um, in the recent past in the sense you can take the last 4 to 5 years. In the last previous 4 years, if you see, we have seen like a lot of criticism with respect to American way of dealing with international institutions. Okay, especially with the emergence of the current president. So we have seen these growing challenges. Just a day back, if you see the sixth point, America sanctioned against ISIS officials because it wants to probe some of the war crimes committed by the US soldiers when they used to operate in other regions of the world. Immediately, America came up with sanctions. So we will be cutting the funds and we will be taking actions against ISIS officials in that way. And before that, if you see, we have seen America's growing concerns with respect to the functions of WHO. So we have seen a lot of discussion with respect to that. And before that, if you see, withdrawal from this Paris climate, immediately after coming to power, the current president withdrew from the Paris Agreement. So stalling the talks on climate change. And time and again the current president keep on remaining the members of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty members. Okay, this is one issue. And we have this one again, the recent withdrawal of United States from UN Human Rights Council. And before that, immediately after coming to power, the president has to sign for withdrawal with respect to Trans-Pacific Partnership. So these are some of the recent maneuvers of USA with respect to global or regional organizations, treaties, and agreements. So as we are seeing all these things, so that's why I, with my known information, I was able to recollect all the recent changes. So I thought these all can be discussed under one roof. So in that context, today I have taken up this particular issue. And obviously, though it's a global issue that is connecting more to the United States, but again, we have to see its impact on Indian foreign policy also. So, in that context, we have to observe this particular situation because whatever change happens in USA or whatever developments we are seeing in USA, they will be having a direct or indirect impact with other countries, especially for a country like India that in the recent past inclining more towards USA. Now let us take topic by topic, then we can discuss. So if you see the first one, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. As you all know, I no need to explain much details about it. You know, this is one of the regional trade agreement among the 12 countries. If you see the map here, you can understand the 12 countries of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In simple terms, this is a trade deal among these 12 countries for a better regional trade. Okay, so these 12 countries, including USA here, so they decided to come into a partnership so that they can reduce their customs duties, they can reduce the import costs. Eventually, it develops all the countries of the region. So that's the whole intention behind Trans-Pacific Partnership when it was established, like when the talks were started way back in 2005. Okay, so if you see, these are the countries. If you correctly observe, on one side we have this what you call Pacific. On the other side, we have this Indian Ocean region. This Indian Ocean, especially this Atlantic. Okay, so it's actually the America. If you correctly observe here, so the whole Pacific region, it wants to have its control. There is a strategic angle also here. America wants to pay more attention towards Asia. So the Pacific region. So the Pacific region will be under its control. So with that reason, initially it signed as a strategic point of view. If you see the countries also, with most of the countries here, we have Japan, we have Australia, we have New Zealand, and we have the Latin American countries. So it thought like it will be having its control over Asia and part of Latin America and even Australia in the Indian Ocean region. Though not exactly the Indian Ocean region, but connecting with it. That's why in the recent past, we also came with another word called as Indo-Pacific, combining Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean region. So because here at the international level, at the geopolitical level, so we have this what you call this advantage, strategic advantage. So with that reason, for both global trade point of view and global alliance point of view, to strengthen the political alliance, this trans-Pacific partnership idea was thought of. If you see the history, initially these countries, New Zealand, Singapore, Brunei and Chile, initially just for trade point of view, they want to come up with this trans-Pacific partnership. Later, USA entered. The reason why USA has to enter here, before the current president, when previous US president was there, Barack Obama, during his time, they made lot many maneuvers, okay, towards Asia, because by that time itself, they recognized the rise in China. So to have US's control even in the Pacific side of the Asian region, USA thought like along with trade, they can strengthen the military alliances. So with that idea, USA initially actually joined the Trans-Pacific Partnership by keeping the idea of strategic partnership. It means on one side military strengthening military alliances along with trade. So this was the whole idea behind this. But when the current president, when he was under campaign in 2016, most of the times the campaign surrounded towards America first policy. America first means for us the Americans are more important. The American state is more important than other countries. So we want first Americans should get the jobs. We want America should develop first. Under this America first policy, so the current president felt like it is actually going against America's trade interests. Okay, so it got its added advantages, like as I mentioned here, more than 40% of this global GDP is under these countries' control. Potential, very potential countries. Like we have this New Zealand, we have Australia, we have Japan, world's third largest economy, along with USA. So 40% of the global GDP is under these countries. At the same time, it will be helpful for United States to grow its leadership even in the Asian Pacific region. So that was the initial idea. But if you see, as I mentioned, it is actually taking away the jobs. Next is it increases the trade deficit because American companies will go and invest in another country. So eventually that country will develop. So it creates a trade deficit, deficit in trade. Deficit in trade means, as you all know, imports will be, the cost of the imports will be more than the exports. At the same time, as US dollar is high in value, some countries might manipulate their value with the dollar value. Right now we have this rupee dollar exchange, right? So if the dollar is performing better, these countries will manipulate the dollar value. Thereby, it will be impacting the overall growth in USA. So with that reason, we want to withdraw. So accordingly, America actually was withdraw. America withdrew from the this particular agreement, Trans-Pacific Partnership. But rest of the countries they thought like even if America left TPP, we all can sign the treaty. We all can sign the agreement. Sorry. So eventually they signed the agreement in the year 2018, a revised agreement with the same content by naming that as Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership by the rest of the 11 countries. So this is the present status of this agreement and why America wants to withdraw. But one point we have to remember here is that America's withdrawal is not just withdrawal of America alone because it is world's largest economy, superpower. When a country like America is doing these kind of things, it may set precedents. It may set as an example. So it ultimately affects the other regional agreements. In that context, we have to see this particular issue. Next one is, if you come to the second issue, retreat from this United Nations Human Rights Council. So again, what is the reason that was mentioned by Trump? Its ally, its closest friend, Israel. Israel is always being targeted by UNHRC. And the point, another point he mentioned is like the elected members of UNHRC, majority of themselves got the human rights violation cases against them. They have a questionable human rights records. This is what he mentioned. So, with that reason, United Nations, United States wants to withdraw from the UNHRC. So, now let us try to understand its background. What exactly UNHRC means? So, it's a previously it used to be a commission. Right now, we are calling it as council. Since 2006, we are calling UNHRC as Human Rights Council. Then you might ask the difference, sir, how different is the council comparing with commission? Human Rights Commission used to be a pure executive body. Members will be appointed. Okay. So it's a pure executive body, Human Rights Commission. Okay. So that means there won't be procedure of election and all. There will be appointment of the members. There will be secretariat to that and it functions. But as criticism grown, that means it is the Human Rights Commission. It's becoming like a more prejudicial. Prejudicial means here it is taking so much actions and there is no process of democracy there. They are taking action, they are taking the initiatives on their own, and it is actually criticized in such a way that only certain countries were paid more attention by Human Rights Commission. Eventually, the members of the United Nations they demanded some kind of democracy when it comes to the functioning of UNHRC. Eventually, in the year 2006, the Human Rights Commission got transformed itself as Human Rights Council. Now, Human Rights Council is an elected body. Elected body means as of now the number of members of HRC is 47 countries. Okay, so each country with a term of 3 years. The term for each country is 3 years. After that, again, how many seats got vacant for them, elections will happen, and the other countries will get elected to that. So it also again the region-wise vote share also there for this. So accordingly, from 2006 onwards, different countries started representing in the Human Rights Council. Okay. Sometimes countries like China, countries like Vietnam, countries like Saudi Arabia, these countries are also members of the Human Rights Council. Most of these countries that I mentioned right now, they too have a questionable human rights violation records. When the countries who are representing, when they go for this universal periodic review means under this, they will review the human rights violations across the globe. Per annum, that means per year, thrice they will discuss. 3 times per year, there will be formation of this assembly. Okay. So, the countries that are doing the universal periodic review on human rights, majority of the countries themselves have a questionable human rights violation records. So, America is arguing that, see, always my friend Israel is getting targeted and countries like China, Saudi Arabia. Okay. So when they have a huge human rights violations and they themselves are becoming members and writing the periodic review, universal periodic review, how can we accept it? We can't accept this. So this was the criticism by the America. Eventually, recently, USA has to withdraw from United Nations Human Rights Council by mentioning these points. Okay. So this is another one. Next is the third one. If you see this one with respect to NATO, as you all know, after the 1945 end of the Second World War, We have seen formation of United Nations, most countries became independent, blah blah blah. And eventually we also got to know that the world got divided into two divisions, the capitalist division and the communist division. What you call that is the first world and the second world. One under the leadership of capitalist country, USA. On the other side, we have this USSR, spread of this communism. And after 1960s, especially the year 1961, they established another one, that is non-aligned. That's why we have this concept of non-alignment movement. When the world got divided like this, okay, so the result of this first world and the second world is what we all know as Cold War. So during the time of Cold War, when the world got divided into first world, second world and third world, especially these first two worlds, the capitalist bloc and the communist bloc, to strengthen their alliance further, they came up with military pacts, military agreements. The military agreement that signed among the capitalist bloc, that means the countries that are in support with the USA, what you call this agreement as, the military pact as NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, 1949. Okay. Similar to NATO, the countries which were in support with the USSR, that time they signed one agreement. The name of this agreement, what we all know as Warsaw Pact. Warsaw, WARSAW, capital of Poland. Okay, so in that way, these two agreements were signed. With the collapse of USSR, Warsaw also gone, but NATO is still continuing as one of the world's strongest military alliance. But if you see the current situation of NATO, this criticism of America to some extent is right, though not fully. What America is saying right now, though we all members agreed that we will have a common pool of defense resources. So for that, every country will contribute certain amount of their country's GDP on defense. Okay. At the same time, especially in the year 2014, all the NATO countries in the year 2014 further decided that up to 2% of country's GDP by each NATO member, we will spend on the defense. So this is what they agreed for. Up to 2% they will be spending on the defense expenditure. Okay. But what America is arguing here is that in the total NATO's military expenditure, but that is being spent by the member countries, 70% is actually under the America alone. So that means rest of the 29 NATO members, the total members are 30. So that means America alone contributing just to the 70% of it. Rest of the 30% is being contributed by the 29 countries. Okay. So, yes, America is contributing more. At the same time, what in turn America is getting? So, this is the question of the current president. So, according to him, so right now he is pressurizing the other countries, especially like countries like Germany. He's pressurizing the countries like Japan. He's telling them, like, now you also should spend. And there is also argument like now they have to increase their per country GDP contribution for military expenditure is 4%. He wants them to increase from 2 to 4%. Okay. So, in this way, right now, he is also further pressurizing the countries to realign. That means to strengthen you also have to contribute more. Why only the American troops should have their presence more? We will withdraw. Because it is at the end of the American taxpayers' money we are spending. So this is the criticism with respect to the NATO. So this is one thing that is churning right now with respect to USA. Next, as I told you, the most famous Paris Agreement. The whole developing world, it criticized this particular decision of the current president like anything. Because after lot many discussions under the Paris Agreement in the year 2015, the member countries of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they all agreed that, okay, in the coming future, our target is we should not allow the global temperatures to rise more than the what we have seen in the pre-industrial level. So by taking pre-industrial level as a ceiling, the member countries argued like we will not allow the percentage of degree of Earth's temperature to increase more than 2 degrees centigrade. So ultimately here we all are for the fighting against climate change. At the same time, member countries also agreed for national contributions. That is what we mentioned that as INDC, intended nationally determined contribution. Each nation will come up with a target. That means for the next year, this much of greenhouse gas emissions we will reduce, this much will contribute for the green energy. So every country first will come up with a target and the targets will be fulfilled. This is what intended. How much the country is planning to do, intended nationally determined contributions. The contributions also will be decided by the countries and they will fulfill it. So in that way, all the member countries of the Paris Agreement agreed for this. Initially, USA also signed it. Okay, countries like India and all the countries they signed and they ratified also. But when the current president came to power, his point of argument is that first point, the current agreement is more biased towards developing countries. So his argument is countries like China, India are contributing more to the pollution, but they are not equally paying for the pollution. It is the USA that is spending billions of dollars on green technologies. And under the Paris Agreement, again the developed countries has to spend more, and developing countries haven't like there is no proper regulation for the developing countries. There is no proper fixed targets. It is just a voluntary. So if the agreement is too weak, why should America should be part of this agreement? So that's his argument. Eventually, he agreed to withdraw from it, and though faced heavy criticism by these environmentalists. So they felt like if that world's uh, powerful economy, if they are doing like this, ultimately what kind of examples we are setting. So in that way, this was also criticized. Okay, as I mentioned to you here, why USA wants to withdraw? This point we already mentioned. Soft stand on developing countries. It is just voluntary, not binding. So eventually it undermines US economy because we are following the regulations more comparing with others. So we will not be better off comparing with others. So our economy will be undermined. That is his argument. Next, this is the recent one as we discussed in the starting. When the COVID pandemic broke up, like when this broke out, and we have seen criticism with respect to WHO, and most of the like to some extent people are saying like it is true. It fell into the trap of China because for the current president's election, there was huge funding from China. So with that reason, WHO like to some extent supported China. So this is one argument. But WHO is arguing like, no, we are as early as and when we got the information about the COVID-19 pandemic, we alerted the people. So this is what the stand taken by WHO. But Trump's criticism is that it leaned towards China, and it is not competing enough to tackle the current situations. Okay, so it got heavily politicized. So, if we are funding it more and if we are not getting the better results, because America is the one of the highly affected country with regard to this COVID-19. So, in that context, so there were a lot many fumes against WHO, functions of WHO. Okay, so in that way, WHO faced heavy criticism from USA. Okay, so this is one issue we have to consider. Okay, next, this is the recent one. The recent one, this is ICC. See, ICC means International Criminal Court. The very purpose for which it was created is with four functions. Rest of the thing you can see created under the Rome Statute, started functioning since 2002. This is basic information. The very purpose for which this particular judicial body, international judicial body that was created. The reason was that first is to stop these four kind of crimes. One is genocide, second one is crimes against humanity, third is war crimes, fourth is crimes of aggression. That means all the global crimes got divided into four divisions. First one is genocide. Genocide means mass killing of people, intentionally eliminating one group of people, either on the basis of religion or on the basis of race. Okay. So this is what genocide means. Genocide means intentional killing of people, intentionally taking away their life. Okay, mass killing. Second one is crimes against humanity. So crimes against humanity means, see, as you all know, like crimes like rape, political repressions, racial discrimination, child soldiers. Okay, so this is what you call crimes against humanity. Okay, next is war crimes. War crimes means during the time of civil war. Let me give you one simple example. One commission was appointed in United Nations against war crimes committed by Sri Lanka during the 2009 war. So war crime means what here? When the civil war took place between the Sri Lankan military and the LTTE. Okay, so eventually the civil war was suppressed. Okay, by capturing Prabhakaran. But one thing we have to remember here is that after that, when what the investigations got found is, along with killing the LTTE militants, there was also huge war crimes committed by the soldiers against the civilians. So eventually one commission was appointed, even by the Sri Lanka, against Sri Lanka. Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission, LLRC. LLRC. Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. Okay, so war crime means crimes committed during the time of the war. It can be war with another country or within the country. Civil war within the country, what we used to call. So this is what we call as war crimes. Next is crime of aggression. Crime of aggression means, suppose for example, annexing another country's territory. Suppose occupation of Crimea by Russia. Crimea. Crimea is a place in Ukraine. It was occupied by Russia in 2014. Okay, annexation. Second one is military coup. Military coup means coup, C-O-U-P, coup. Military coup means within the country, the military will come and occupy everything and it will start oppressing people's rights. Crime of aggression. Okay, next is blocking the ports. Suppose if the country is getting essential supply via the sea route and blocking the ports so that not allowing the country to get the supplies, essentials. Port blockades. Okay. So these all are what we used to call it the crime of aggression. So you want to showcase your hegemony. Okay. So these against all these four crimes at the international level. Okay. To deal with the international justice, there came one organization called as International Criminal Court. But since its inception, it is in the it's into the controversies. The thing is, what most people criticize with respect to International Criminal Court is that it functioned heavily in Africa, but not in the rest of the world. Because African countries are poor, so it took the cases, most of the cases only in Africa. But there are countries like in USA also, it is going to different countries and it is also committing crimes. But ICC could not able to raise the voice because USA is a superpower. But recently, when ICC wants to raise its voice against some of the war crimes committed by the US soldiers, when they went to operations in different countries like Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, immediately America mentioned like, so here we are providing service to other countries. So how come you come up with investigations against American soldiers? We don't accept this. If America, if ICC wants to go for investigation against US soldiers, then we will be coming up with sanctions. So in that way now it is threatening the ICC also. This is a recent issue, just a few days back issue. So in that way right now, when it comes to all the major international groupings or the treaties or agreements, where we are seeing this kind of churn. On one side, countries like China, it is strengthening its international alliances. On the other side, countries like USA, it is posing challenges with respect to these international groupings. India is a country, okay, we want to balance all. We want to be, see, suppose for example, uh, we are leaning more towards the West in the sense here, USA and its friends. But their actions are actually going against our interest. So this is a very, what you call, complex issue. I can explain that. Just see this. Just see, as I mentioned, the reasons why America wants to pose sanctions against ICC. I mentioned all this. It is criticizing ICC like there is a growing pressure from Russia. They always targeting Israel. They want to sanction against US soldiers. I see sanctions against US soldiers with respect to their crimes against humanity when they participate in the civil war, like wars in other countries. So these all won't be acceptable. So this is what America mentioned. So, so this is for your assignment. You can, along with ICC, there are other bodies: International Court of Justice, Permanent Court of Arbitration, International Court of Arbitration. Just to find out some information about these things also. ICC, ICJ, it's a body of United Nations. So just find out like that. What is the difference among these four? ICC, ICJ, PCA, ICA. So you can do this work. Next, now I'm coming back to the final question, that is India specific question. In what way India should view? Just a mention. Right now, because as we all know, the competitor for India in Asian continent is China. There is no doubt. So China is actually growing very heavily. So definitely, and China and India got their own internal challenges. As you all know, the recent standoff in Ladakh between the Indian troops and the Chinese troops. So, because we have a border conflict, both are ambitious, both wants to strengthen their economies, both are larger countries, both got huge population. Okay, so because India is almost on par with China when it comes to competing at the global level, on one side when China is rising, India too making its move. So with that reason, as we mentioned in some of the previous classes also, we lean towards the West. We are more and more into the fold of the West. We are making more military agreements with them. We are supporting their decisions. They in turn supporting us in the multilateral institutions. It can be stressing for membership in NSG, or recently made a member as MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime. Okay, so West also trying to give its support to India. India also in turn trying to utilize that particular support. But one point here, what we have to remember is, right now West, especially West in the sense of the dominant player USA. When USA is making these kind of moves, like criticizing ICC, criticizing WHO, withdrawal from Paris. On the other side, India wants all this. India wants to give respect to ICC. India wants reforms in WHO. India wants reforms in United Nations Security Council. India wants the global trade. India wants to promote what you can say method steps to stop the climate change. On one side, India wants all. On the other side, there is a growing criticism against all these aspects by USA. In this situation, getting closer with the West is a very tricky thing for right now when it comes to India. So this point you should remember very much carefully. Okay, we are moving towards the West, but there is a growing divergence of interests when it comes to the West and India. So how India should balance this? It's a very complex issue. It is becoming more and more complex for India. Okay, because India wants multipolar world. We do not want the world should be dominated by either China or USA or Russia. We want the world should be with everyone. So for that, if the world is for everyone, then we have to give importance to institutions like United Nations and the bodies of United Nations. If country by country, if they start criticizing them and coming out of them, it ultimately questions the very survival of this particular body called as United Nations. So definitely for India, it's a very challenging thing. On one side, when we are getting closer with the West, on the other side, world's major power like USA, when it's criticizing all these institutions, India should be very much careful in balancing both. Okay. At the same time, similar to American withdrawal of TPP, India also recently did not sign the RCEP. Similar to America, for India, this is the trade agreement. Trade agreement with the Southeast Asian countries. Southeast Asian countries, as you all know, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei, Singapore. These all are the Southeast Asian nations. They have a regional bloc similar to SAARC. For South Asia, we have a SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Similar to SAARC, what they have in their country, their region is ASEAN, as we all know, Association for Southeast Asian Nations, established in the year 1967. Okay, so, but recently when India wants to make a deal with them, because of the internal opposition, India did not sign the RCEP. RCEP is similar to what you call this TPP. But here also same, like it is also contributing around 23% to the global GDP, all the countries of RCEP. And we have more than 40% of the global population that is being represented by these RCEP countries. Total 16 countries. 10 ASEAN countries plus 6 others. 6 others means here China, South Korea, Japan, India, Australia, New Zealand. Plus 10 countries of ASEAN. So, and we did not sign that. So we too have our own concerns here. So ultimately what I'm trying to conclude is that on one side we have to observe the international developments. At the same time, we should keep India in that position and we should think. If if the challenges comes to WHO, what India should do? If challenges comes to ICC, what India should do? If challenges comes to TPP, what India should do? So we have to compare. So that's why I have taken all the recent developments with respect to USA. At the same time, via the lens of India, I want to discuss this particular issue. So that's the reason I took up all these issues and I made a summary of it and I compared that with Indian foreign policy. So with that, I'm concluding the topic. Thank you.